What is going on, guys? This is Trendkill, and welcome to my Divinity Original Sin character build guides. Now, this is the first build guide I'm going to be doing, and if you followed me from my Skyrim builds, you'll kind of know about how this is going to flow. If you haven't, let me break down a couple things. First off, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you're not interested in seeing spoilers, click out now. Now, I'm not sure to the extent of what I'm going to spoil. Is it going to be minor or major spoilers? I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to see how the video ends up flowing, but there will be spoilers. Also, this is not going to be an action-packed video, especially since we are playing Divinity Original Sin, which is not really an action-packed game. It's a very strategic game. So don't expect to be wowed the entire time. This is going to be a strictly informational video showing you start to finish how to build a certain type of character. Now, also understand that this is just my opinion, and this does not mean you have to follow this specifically to be the quote-unquote best. You can definitely take this and follow it exactly, or you can take it and use it as a base for your build and add in your own flavor. You can do with this guide as you please, just understand that this is not the only way to play this type of character. Now that we've got all that out of the way, let's talk about what type of class we're going to be building. Now again, I keep bringing this up, but if you followed my Skyrim builds, you will know that my favorite style to play any game is a ranged class. I love bow and arrows. I love shooting from a distance, but also I love sneaking. So I played a class in Skyrim called a witch hunter, and it was very sneaky, ranged, used a little bit of magic, and that is exactly what I tried to replicate in Divinity, and luckily, to my benefit, this was a very, very solid class. So just for sake of arguing, we're just going to call this a ranger. Now, I do want to warn you, rangers early on are nothing to be super excited about, so understand that you're not going to be a powerhouse very early. You're going to have to rely on a lot of other things to make you valuable early on in the game, but once you hit that mark, there's a certain mark, and I can't remember when it was, but there's a certain level, I got a bow upgrade, and I started to get all these skills, and I was like, wow, I'm doing a ton of damage now. And eventually you'll get there and you'll be the main source of damage for your party. So understand it is going to take some time to reach your full potential. Alright, so let's actually talk about the build. Let's talk about our starting build. We're 2-something minutes into a character build video and we haven't even talked about building a character yet. So the initial build, we're looking at this from a somewhat min-max perspective. I don't like using that term because it's not really an online game. It's not an MMO or a MOBA where we're really focused on being the best we can possibly be. This is a single-player game. So let's focus on min-max extremely lightly and play the game how you want to play it more importantly. But starting off, I think, is way more important to min-max than it is late game. So let's take a look at the starting build and how I think you can come out of the gates being the best ranger you can possibly be. So as far as attributes are concerned, I put 1 point in bow, 1 point in scoundrel, and 3 points in marksman, and that's it. So I only take 3 abilities out of the gate, but I don't really find anything else to be super important. Now, you have the option of taking that point out of scoundrel and putting that into geomancer, and when we get over to the skills, I'll explain why you have that option, but I think there's really nothing more that you might want to do right off the bat that's going to benefit you in any way. The only other thing that I think is important is sneaking, and we'll talk about that a little later, but sneaking is important to max out early because that's going to give you the damage potential, and that's really what's going to turn the tides as far as how much damage you're doing as we get further into the game. The only issue with sneaking is that early on, it takes so many action points to use in battle, it's really just not worth it. Now, as far as talents are concerned, since we have 2 points in Expert Marksman, we get access to a talent that we don't get access to otherwise, which is why I put 3 points in Marksman. One, it's going to be one of the first talents, or abilities, that we actually max out first, and 2, it's going to give us access to Sidestep off the bat. Sidestep is going to give you a 10% extra chance to evade hits, and the only other talent that I find really necessary to take out of the gate is probably Bully. If you did put a point into Sneak, you might want to grab Gorilla off the bat. It doesn't matter, you're going to end up with both eventually, but I find Bully to be more important, especially if you choose to go the Geomancer route, or you're playing with another character like a Warrior or a Knight who has a ton of knockdowns. Bully's going to give you a 50% extra damage to slowed, cripple, and knock down enemies. So knockdowns are going to be extremely important for your ranger. One, it gives you a 100% chance to hit that person, and 2, with Bully, it's going to give you 50% extra damage while you're hitting that person. So knockdowns are going to be extremely important. Now let's take a look at our attributes. I choose to put my points into dexterity and constitution and stop there. I don't like to spread my points too thin, especially when you get late game. Strength is not going to matter, intelligence is not going to matter, speed and perception matter a little bit, but I find the sweet spot for speed is around 7, 8, maybe 9 points in speed, and obviously perception is important. It's going to increase your chance to hit. But the way I build this character, you might not need to worry about perception all that much. Again, we'll get into some of that stuff a little bit later, but dexterity and constitution are extremely important. One, constitution is going to give you health, and we are going to end up taking glass cannon in this build, which is going to reduce your health later. We can take a look at that right now. Glass cannon doubles your recovery AP, but your total vitality is increased by 50. So your health pool, your vitality is decreased in half. So it's important to have a lot of constitution to regain that. Also, it's going to decide how many maximum action points you can have, which is extremely important when you couple that with glass cannon, because it doubles your recovery AP, but if you don't have the max AP to hold on to that recovery AP, you're wasting it. So constitution is very important. Dexterity is obviously important. It's going to increase your chance to hit with dexterity-based weapons, which a bow is, and it's going to improve your expert marksman and scoundrel skills, which you're obviously going to go into. Now, starting skills, let's talk about the 2 ways that you can start. You can start with Scoundrel and Expert Marksman, which I have chosen to do. You can start with Expert Marksman and Geomancer, or you can take the 2 points that I put into Expert Marksman to get it to level 2 out, and you can spread that across Marksman, Geomancer, and Scoundrel, and then put another point elsewhere, like maybe into Sneaking, and then you have a lot more flexibility in your starting build. I just don't find that to be a necessary way to go. So the 2 ways I would start is 2 in Marksman and 1 in either Geomancer or Scoundrel. If you're going to start in Scoundrel, start exactly like I have. 1 in Fast Track, 1 in Walk in Shadows, and 1 in Ricochet. I'll explain the other build first, and then I'll tell you why I prefer Scoundrel way. So the reason that Geomancy is an option is because if you have Bully, you're going to get a 50% damage increase against slowed enemies. Well, you have the option to choose Midnight Oil, which creates an oil surface, which not only couples well with fire, but also slows characters down that are in the oil. So you create that slow surface and shoot them with Bully, you're going to get a 50% damage increase. Pretty good synergy. Also, you get a summon pet, which is going to allow you to summon a spider. That's going to give you an extra body, and you can put that in between yourself and other ranged enemies, so they either have to move away from the spider or shoot the spider themselves. The AI in this game is not the greatest. If you put something close to them, they're probably going to attack it. So throwing a spider out there is a great way to start a battle. So that is an optional path. I find both to be extremely successful, and you're going to be using both eventually anyway. However, I choose to go the Scoundrel start because I really want Fast Track. That's going to increase my AP. A lot of the times what I'll do is I'll throw on Fast Track, give myself that haste, and then I'll shoot somebody to initiate a battle. So I'm going to have a maximum AP of +4, a starting AP of +4, and a recovery AP of +3. Plus, I'm going to be able to move further with that AP, and it's going to really allow me some versatility in battle. I'm going to be able to do a lot more things with Fast Track. Hasting is very important on rogues and rangers and classes like that. I also get Walk in Shadows, which is extremely important for when you get to the very first town and you have an abundance of houses to just rob blind. Walk in Shadows allows you to go completely invisible and walk around in people's houses just stealing shit without having to worry about being caught. So Walk in Shadows is extremely important for an early boost in the game without you having to buy the Walk in Shadows book. Either way, I find is a very, very great start. It doesn't matter because by the time you get to the first town, you are going to be level 2, so you can put a point into Scoundrel, but then you have to hope that the first chick in the town that sells Scoundrel books is selling Walk in Shadows so that you can utilize it from the beginning. So it's all a matter of playing the cards right and hoping, you know, that the RNG works out in your favor, but you choose to play however you choose starting off. The Geomancer start is probably going to be a little more of a defensive way to start, and the Scoundrel start is probably going to be a little more offensive, more of a greedy way to start. Alright, so let's go ahead and move into the game now. Let's talk about where we should be spending our points as we're leveling up. Now, I'm going to create milestones at every level that you gain a talent point. If you remember from my initial video, that is every 4 levels starting at level 3. So level 3, 7, 11, 15, and 19, those are going to be our milestones. We're going to stop at each of those levels and talk about where your attribute and ability points should be spent to make sure you're doing the most damage as early as you possibly can. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the game. Let's talk about how and on when and where you should be spending your ability and attribute and talent points as you're leveling up through the game. Now, it is important to note that this game is completely different than most RPGs in the fact that you cannot follow this build exactly to a T, because your gear and your weapons and your armor is going to be completely different than what I find in my playthroughs. And the importance of that is, if you find a pair of boots that has +1 sneaking and a pair of bracers that has +1 sneaking, you're going to spend less points in sneaking to get it to level 5 than I am in my playthrough. So this build is going to show you an end game. We're going to show you what you want to get to and how you should be prioritizing abilities and talents, but I can't really show you exactly how to spend your points each level because it's going to be dependent on the gear you have. So let me illustrate that a little bit. If I find a pair of boots that has a +1 to sneaking on it, that pair of boots is essentially worth 5 ability points, because how you level up your abilities in the game, 1 point takes you to level 1, another 2 points takes you to level 2 for a total of 3, and that increases each level. So to get to level 5 in one ability is going to cost 15 ability points. However, if I have a +1 to sneaking, that takes away not the first level, but the last level. So essentially, to get to level 5 in sneaking with a pair of +1 boots, it's only going to cost me 10 action points instead of 15. If I have 2 in boots, which is obviously preferable, I'm sorry, not 2 in boots, 2 in sneaking on boots, which is obviously preferable, that's going to save me 9 ability points, which is a ton. It's going to give you way more versatility in your build. So don't go gung-ho on putting level 5 as soon as you can into a thing. Obviously, you're going to want to wait until you see if I can find an item that's going to increase that by 1, so I at least save myself 5, if not 2, so I can save myself 9 action points. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about level 3. Not really that exciting of a level. You have 2 ability points, an attribute point, and a talent point to spend. The most important decision here is your talent point. You're going to want to put 1 in sneaking and 1 in geomancer starting off. Those are the 2 things that we didn't get in our starting build that we really needed. And with that, you're going to unlock gorilla, which requires 1 in sneaking. That doubles your attack damage while sneaking. Early on, that's not going to be super important, but that's going to greatly come into play in our build later as we get a few more abilities opened up and some better items, obviously. But it's a good opener, at least. Gorilla doubles your attack damage while you're sneaking, so you go into sneak mode, you can shoot somebody with an arrow. Say you find like a squishy mage or somebody that you know has low life. Well, Gorilla gives you more of a chance to one-shot that person, so you have the ability of opening a battle with 1 less person involved. So it's a good opener, at least at this level. You're probably not going to be using it too much until we get our sneak leveled up, and I'll explain why. We're going to probably put this point into dexterity. You can put it into constitution. You can really put your points wherever. Again, it's going to be dependent on the gear that you have. But let's take a look here at our sneak button. Now, to sneak, it takes 6 action points with 0 points spent in sneaking. Now, this is in-combat sneaking, so very, very inefficient way to fight as you're leveling up. But once you get to level 5 in sneak, it's only going to cost you 1 action point to sneak. So essentially, it's 6 action points without a point in sneaking, 5 with 1, 4 with 2, 3 with 3, 2 with 4, and 1 with 5. Now, this doesn't show that I just put an ability point into sneak. This will not update until I'm actually in combat. So you have to get into a fight before that updates, but as soon as you do, it will. So just know that you gain, I guess, an action point, or you're reducing an action point every time you put a point into sneak. Oh, now I have bulls and other dudes fighting me. This is going to hell in a handbasket real quick. So let's move on to level 7 when we get our next talent point. Alright, so this milestone is obviously going to be a little more involved because we have 2 attribute points, we have 6 ability points, we have another talent point to spend. You're going to notice a pattern that each milestone is going to have 2 attribute points and a talent point and a differing number of ability points as we level up. Again, we don't know where you're going to put these exactly, but I do want to illustrate the importance of prioritizing. So we're going to assume that you have a couple points in sneak now because you've got like a pair of boots or something that has sneak on it. And we're going to focus on getting points into our expert marksman. Now, in this level, we can probably put a couple points in expert marksman. I'm sorry, not this level, this milestone. We could have put a couple points into expert marksman. We also could have probably put an extra point into sneaking. And we've got 1 left over. You can can toss that anywhere. If you've got some extras, you can put a point in bow. You know, just slowly level yourself up, but you want to prioritize bow, expert marksman, and sneaking. You want to get those to level 5 as fast as possible. So whatever order you decide to do those in, you need to do it as quickly as you can. Don't focus on peripheral stuff just yet. Ignore personality, ignore craftsman, leave your henchmen to do that kind of stuff. You really don't have to do anything with defense. Do I have a point? No, okay. I was gonna say, do I have a point in willpower? That must be from a thing. Yeah, from independent. Okay. So ignore defense, ignore crafting and personality. Just focus on your skills, your nasty deeds, and your weapons at this point. As far as your attribute points are concerned, again, we don't know where you're going to be at gear-wise, but I would probably say go ahead and dump a couple points into dexterity, get that up. You want to have, I would say, about 12 dexterity, 8 constitution is a good place to be at. You need about 6, 7, 8-ish speed, and probably more perception than speed. So focus on finding gear that's going to counter where you're putting your points at from your levels. It's fairly simple. You just got to make sure that the math is done correctly so that you actually are getting the most bang for your buck, obviously. You don't want to dump all of your points into dexterity and then find a bunch of gear that adds to dexterity as well. You'll be completely one-sided. Now, as far as this talent is concerned, the next talent that is important is glass cannon. However, you can see that if I were to put a point in glass cannon right now, I would go from 217 vitality right here to 72. That is a big reduction in survivability this early. Now, I do want to point out that in the first, this game is basically separated into 4 chapters, or 4 scenes, whatever you want to call it. And each of those chapters or scenes has its own area. In this first area, you will be fighting nothing but undead. So anytime you find a skeleton or something like that, your bow is going to do absolute shit damage against a skeleton because it's just bones. It's extremely hard to damage bones with an arrow. In RPGs, historically, skeletons are more damaged by blunt weapons or by warriors who have two-handed swords that are smashing them in the chest. If you try to pierce damage a skeleton, it's not going to do anything. So you're going to be extremely weak early on. So you can look at that 2 ways. I can take glass cannon, which is going to give me more AP to do different things to those skeletons, or I can skip glass cannon for now until I get to the next zone. Completely up to you, but glass cannon is going to be the next thing you focused on. So boom, we're going to take that, just assuming you've made your decision and you know what you're doing. Again, we have an extra available ability point. You can spend that wherever you like. I would do my best to focus on putting that into, again, expert marksman, sneaking, or your bow. But if you can't, save the point. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal to save your points. Yes, you want to spend them as much as you can so you're better, quicker, but saving points is not the worst idea in the world. So let's move on and take a look at the next milestone. All right, so at level 11, it's going to be even more involved than level 7 was because we have 4 more ability points to spend. We still have our 2 available attribute points and our 1 talent point. This is going to be a big milestone for us. So we're going to max out Expert Marksman, get that to level 5. We're going to do that as fast as we can. Now, we've still got, what do we have, 2 in sneaking? Assuming we have 1 or 2 from boots or other items, we might have a 3 or 4 in sneaking, which is going to be absolutely great. Next level is going to be massive. Level 12, when you can finally max out that sneaking, if you found +2 in sneaking from items, whether it be weapons, which I don't think you can find weapons with sneaking on it, but armor, like say you find boots. You also have void essences. You can craft sneaking onto items. So make sure at this point in the game you have 2 items that give you a bonus to sneaking for the most potential that you can have. And at level 12, you get 3 points. You can dump that last 3 points into sneaking to max that out at 5. So we'll get to that next level and we'll kind of talk about that. Not next level, but next milestone. So by the time we hit level 5 in marksman, we're going to unlock 2 new talents. One being, where's that? Elemental Ranger, which is okay. Arrows may inflict bonus elemental damage depending on the surface of which your target is standing, meaning if they're standing on fire, you have the chance of doing extra fire damage. But the big one, Quick Draw. Quick Draw reduces 1 AP from the cost of using ranged weapons. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. Now, I don't know if I can show you draw sheath weapon. No. I have to be in combat to do this, but essentially it used to cost me 4 points to shoot my bow. It now only costs me 3, which is huge. And that goes back to having that sneak maxed out. If I max my sneak out at 5, I can sneak in combat, shoot somebody with a bow for double gorilla damage for the same AP as it was costing me to shoot them with a regular shot in the first 10 levels of the game. This is where you're going to start to see some power come out of this ranger build. This is where you're going to see your ability to start to do a lot of cool things. By this point, you're going to have an absolute metric shit ton of special arrows, and you're going to have an ability to do a lot more damage a lot quicker. So let's take a look at our action points real quick. Our turn action points are at level 12 with glass cannon. That is not including my hasten from fast track. So let me go ahead and hasten, and then I'll show you what it looks like after that. Now I have 18 action points per turn. With my constitution as high as it is, I have a maximum of 19 action points that I can have, meaning that I'm taking full potential of my action points every single turn when I'm hastened. I get hastened for, I think, 3 turns. So if you start the battle with hastened, you're going to have a bonus to your maximum action points, and you're going to have a turn action points of 18. Now, when that wears off, I go back down to 15 and 12, but even still, my action points per turn are being maximally, I'm going to use that word, are going to be maximally utilized by my constitution and my ability to have at least 12, if not more, action points per turn. Maximally. Anyway, so that is the importance of having Gorilla with glass cannon coupled with a high constitution. You're going to be able to do a lot of stuff. Now, again, this level you have 2 extra attribute points. You can spend those anywhere where you have gaps in your build, and I'll show my final build later on a character that I'm actually playing through the game with. I think it's probably have a save at level 18 or 19. I've beaten the game with it, but I kept an old save. And I'm just going to say, let's put another point to dexterity and another point in constitution. Why not? We're focusing on speed and perception from our items. Sure, whatever. All right, let's move on to the next milestone. All right, level 15, you should be a bona fide badass at this point. We've got 5 in expert marksman. We don't have to worry about that. We're going to assume we've got 5 in sneaking because you put your next points in at level 12, and you have 2 in boots. So at level 12, we put 3 points into sneaking to get that to level 3, plus our 2 from boots or bracers or whatever items that you have that could give you plus 2 to sneaking, and we're now at level 5 sneaking. So where do we focus our points at this point? I would say probably bow is a good place to start. This gives us the ability to just start dumping points into our weapon. At this point, depending on, I'm not sure if you will have it yet or not, but you will unlock another weapon type. Again, I did say there were going to be spoilers in this video, so here's another spoiler warning. If you're not interested in breaking the storyline, you're going to unlock a new weapon called Tenebrium, and if you find a Tenebrium bow, I would recommend putting points into Tenebrium instead of bow, because anything that has Tenebrium damage on it is going to be adjusted by the Tenebrium weapon stat. You can have a bow with Tenebrium on it, and bow will no longer affect the extra damage that you do with that weapon. If it has Tenebrium damage on it, it will utilize the Tenebrium weapon ability. So make sure you remember that. Again, as far as attributes are concerned, continue putting your points into stuff to make sure you have a rounded out build. And at this point, you would probably grab your Elemental Ranger unless you find something that you really want more than that. But Elemental Ranger is just going to give you the extra damage that you probably would want from that level 5 expert marksman ability. So essentially this is going to be a fairly boring way to level. I mean, not a boring way to level, but a boring kind of like stretch of levels, because you're essentially just going to be dumping your points into bow, but that's going to give you the ability to do way more damage. So you know, you're going to go from 1 point giving you 10% to 4 points giving you 40%. That's assuming you don't have a plus to something on your weapon, like you have a bow that gives you a +1 to bow damage or a +1 to the bow ability. You're going to be at 50% damage boost. I mean, you're going to see a significant increase in your damage in these levels. It's just going to be not as fun because you're kind of already maxed out on your build. So let's move on to the final, whatever you call it, milestone before we get out of here, and then I'll kind of put together maybe a part 2 showing you exactly how this should be utilized. Alright, so our final milestone of the video, we're going to basically kind of clean up. We've got 13 ability points. You're going to essentially start putting things where you want them at this point. You want to make sure your bow's at level 5 minimum, so go ahead and drop those points in. We've got 8 left. You could toss some into defense if you really wanted to. I don't find that to be a necessity. If you want to, you could even max out sneaking even more, assuming you still have items. Maybe you've dropped an item that lost you a point in sneaking, and you've got to get that point back. Completely up to you. Personality would always be decent. You could use bartering for extra money, things like that. You could start to bulk up your Geomancer stuff or your Scoundrel stuff if you'd like to. Spend these points how you see fit. You've already maxed out basically the build that we're focusing on getting our Marksman to level 5 and our Scoundrel, or not our Scoundrel, our Sneaking to level 5. Again, with the attributes, put these in to kind of make sure you're the most well-rounded character you can be as far as high dexterity, second highest constitution, third highest perception, and speed around 7 or 8-ish. So make sure you've got that. And then our last talent, I mean, you could really put this in multiple places. This is going to be just for quality of life more than likely. The options that I would recommend, maybe arrow recovery. That's going to give you a 20% chance to recover special arrows after you shoot them. You could go as far as something like stench, which decreases their chance of attacking you, but also decreases everyone's attitude towards you by 25, so you're definitely not going to be this bastion of charisma. You're not going to be the guy who's bartering or selling stuff because you're going to get a reduced cost because those people don't like you. You could go with something like Speed Creeper. That's going to be an absolute only quality of life. Basically, if you're sneaking in battle, it takes more action points to walk around the battlefield. This will eliminate that. So if you accidentally go into sneak, you don't waste that action point. You can actually get around the battlefield just like you could if you weren't sneaking. You could go Pack Mule. That's going to give you more to carry. You could go My Precious, going to give your stuff basically more durability, or a 50% chance, 50% less of a chance to lose durability when you get hit or use your weapon. Pet Pal allows you to talk to animals. There's a lot of choices that you've got. And you really use this point to flavor your character however you see fit. It's the last talent point you're going to get, so it really doesn't matter. We're level 19 at this point. You're only going to be using this talent for the last couple levels, so completely up to you on where you want to spend this. If you wanted to skip Elemental Ranger and grab that now, you could have picked another talent point earlier on at level, what was it? 15. At level 15, you could have picked, one of these extra quality of life ones. You would have got more use out of it. Just pick Elemental Ranger for the in-game to do more damage. Really, talents, once you've got Gorilla, Bully, Quick Draw, and Glass Cannon, that's really all you absolutely need. Sidestep and Elemental Ranger are just bonuses. Sidestep gives you that chance of evasion, and Elemental Ranger is going to give you that extra damage. So really use this how you see fit. So now that we've got this out of the way, let's take a look at the character I've already got created, a character I've actually used, and kind of show you exactly what it's going to look like once you have gear and all of that stuff involved. So give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Alright, so here is a look at my character at level 18. Now, I thought I had one a little higher than this, so we're going to miss out on that last talent, but as I spoke before, that last talent's really unimportant. So if you look at my attributes, you can see strength is just, okay, I got a couple from gear, whatever. Dexterity is obviously my highest, Constitution is my second highest, Perception is my third highest, Speed is at 8. Like I said, cap that at 7, 8, 9 at maximum. I got 2 from gear. Perception, I get 2 from gear, so I got a base of 8. Constitution, I get 4 from gear, a base of 10. And Dexterity, I have a base of 10 with 6 from gear. So you can really see this start to mold itself out as you have gear that benefits that in some way. Now, if we're going to look at my abilities, we're going to be a little, I'm going to be a little embarrassed because I told you to make sure you get your bow to 5. However, I just replaced the bow on this save, and I forgot about that. My previous bow had +1 to bow, so this is why you're seeing a Tenebrium at, where was it at? 1 from gear, because something I've gotten has boosted that instead of my bow. So, just understand that this was at 5 before I replaced that weapon. I've got a few points in defense only from items. Nothing to really be excited about there. Obviously, as I just explained in that build as I was going through it, I didn't put anything in defense. Level 5 Expert Marksman, 3 in Geomancer, 1 in Scoundrel. Again, I'm using my Scoundrel specifically for that haste and that invisibility. I do have Cloak and Dagger, which is another leap. It's a teleport. I also have my Tactical Retreat, which is another leap. So I have 2 ways of getting away escape from people, plus an invisibility that gives me 3 ways to escape a rough situation. So if you if you're close to a melee guy who's got attack of opportunity and you're low on life, you can get out, right? You don't have to stay in and die. From skills, personality, I've got a little bit in each one of these. These are just 3 points I just threw in for some random idea. Base 1 and bartering, these came from the bonuses you get from your traits. Craftsmanship, 1 from blacksmithing. I have 2 base in lore master, but items like my amulets and my rings give me 3. So I'm the person who is identifying our items for us. Telekinesis, you're going to find on rings and amulets a lot as well. And nasty deeds, I got 4 in sneaking, I think. Sneaking, please give me my, there it goes. 4 in sneaking and 1 from gear. So there I saved myself 5 ability points, and I was able to spread those in other areas that I felt like I need them. So understand that, like, getting my Geomancer to level 3, that was done solely on the fact that I had sneaking boots that gave me +1 to sneaking. I saved 5 points to get sneaking from 4 to 5, and I spent that on getting Geomancer from level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. So you can see the benefit of getting those items that are going to increase the stats that you already know you're going to increase. If I would have had another item that increased sneaking again, I would have been able to spend 4 more points elsewhere. So it's really important to balance your items and your levels. I just noticed my name up here is really weird. What the hell is that? My save must be, like, bugged or something. Everybody else is normal. What the hell? Anyway, so that's how the build looks in-game. And you can see with my high constitution, my vitality is still 1,034. I mean, that's a pretty big chunk. Our tank is at 1202. Now, his constitution isn't all that great because he went more of intelligence versus constitution. He's more of like a hybrid build, but still, I've got nearly as much life as our tank, and I have 3 evasion abilities that he doesn't have. So I might go as far to say as I have the most survivability in the group because I'm shooting from a distance. I've got 3 evasion abilities, and I still have a lot of vitality because I've got high constitution to get my action points up. My maximum action points are 21. Turn action points are 2. Let me go ahead and hasten, show you what that changes to. 25 max action points with a turn action points of 20. At this point, I can get hasten from several places. Myself, your mages, if you have a fire mage, they have a hasten. Let me go over here. They have a hasten from fire, which is called something infectious flame. No, I don't know where it's at. He might not have it yet, but in game you get an ability to hasten people, and the higher your intelligence, which he's got a 25 intelligence, which is just absolutely ridiculous, it lowers the cooldowns of everything, so he can hasten somebody every single turn. So your mage can keep you hastened the entire battle, and you can just go to town on shooting people. Again, my AP is at 3. My AP per shot is at 3. My sneak attack is 1. So that gives me, I don't know why it says 6, but if I were to go into combat, which I don't really want to do, but I'm going to do it just to show you. Where are we at? There we go. We're in combat. Oh, I'm on the wrong person. I feel like a complete and utter jackass right now. Anyway, you get the point. My sneak would have been 1 point. My AP is 3 to shoot. This guy is just going to cast spells into the stairs while I talk. And if I wanted to go into like a power stance or a precision stance, like say I've got somebody knocked down, if I wanted to try to finish somebody off, I could go for oh my goodness, he killed all those imps and gave me a bunch of experience. Okay, game. Okay. Either way, you guys get the point of the build. It's an extremely powerful build. I will put together a part 2 video kind of showing you the extreme power that it actually has. My God. Oh my God, Jahan just got blown the fuck up by this chick. Holy shit. That was the most incredible thing I've ever watched. Wow. Okay, well, you get to see the sneak attack, so let me go ahead and kind of step back. Let's step back here. That should get me out. Yes, I can sneak literally right next to these guys. So, 1 to go into sneak. You saw that one was spent. I can attack with a 31% chance. Let me just shoot this guy here. 426 plus 22 plus 44. That was not a crit. So, he's dead. I can just sneak again. Shoot this guy. 378, 29, and 60. Not a crit. I don't have any action points to do anything else, so I'd pass my turn at this point. But next turn, I would have a shit ton of action points because I would get all my bonuses from my glass cannon. So next turn, you're going to see my action points completely full. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and get to my next turn. Let's just skip everybody else's turn real quick. Watch these guys cast some spells. So you kind of get the point of the build. It's super, super powerful, and I'll show you the power of the build with a couple big fights later on. Maybe we'll go clear out of town or something in another video. But let me let this run through. Once this chick's done killing literally everybody, she's dead. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just keep smacking him because he's probably gonna heal off of that. Yeah. Just keep healing him for me. That'd be great. All right, so now you can see I've got 16 action points because I'm not hastened. This guy's looking right at me, so I won't be able to sneak. But all I've got to do is probably move 1 action point's worth of distance over, like, say, this direction. And I'm out of his cone of vision. That's the power of level 5 sneak. So I'm going to go ahead and kill you. There's a bunch of damage. I'm going to go ahead and kill you. There's a bunch of damage. Let's sneak again. Shoot you. There's a bunch of damage. Not as much as the other guys, obviously. And now I don't have enough to sneak and shoot. So I'm going to go ahead and just shoot her once. Maybe I'll hit her, maybe I won't. Oh, I did. I critted too. So anyway, that's the power of this fucking build. You can literally just erase things from the board. So I will make a part 2 showing you guys the power of this build, and you guys can kind of watch it as it unfolds. I'll make decisions based on what's happening in battle, and we can go from there. All right, guys, thanks for watching the guide, I guess, the Ranger build. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, please leave that stuff in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer it. And until next time, guys, I will see you later. Thanks for stopping by. Peace.